I never imagined that carrying a tray of drinks at a family barbecue would end with my own son slapping me in front of 30 relatives. I fell to the ground while everyone stood silent. His wife looked at me and told me I was the one who needed to apologize and leave. I said nothing. I simply walked away. But before midnight, 3 men arrived at my son's house. When he opened the door and saw who they were, the color disappeared from his face. He finally realized that the father he had humiliated had been keeping one important truth from him. My name is David Miller, and I had spent most of my life believing that family meant standing together no matter what happened. I had worked long hours, paid my bills, and helped my children whenever they needed me, and never expected anything in return. My son Ethan was 40 and had built a comfortable life with his wife Amanda. We were never extremely close, but I still considered him my son and wanted him to succeed. That Saturday afternoon, our extended family gathered at my brother's house for a big barbecue. There were nearly 30 relatives there. Children were playing in the yard. Music was playing near the patio, and everyone was laughing. I volunteered to carry drinks from the kitchen to the backyard. As I walked outside, I accidentally bumped into Ethan. One glass fell from the tray and broke on the ground. I immediately apologized and started picking up the pieces. Ethan suddenly turned around and slapped me across the face. The entire backyard went silent. I stumbled backward and fell onto a chair. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. I looked at my son and could not believe what had just happened. Then Amanda walked toward me. Instead of asking if I was okay, she told me I had embarrassed everyone and should apologize to Ethan before leaving. I looked around at the relatives who had watched everything happen. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked away. I slowly stood up. I did not argue. I did not shout. I simply said that I was leaving. As I drove home, my hands were shaking. Not because of the slap. It was because I finally understood something painful. My son no longer respected me. That evening, I sat alone in my living room and opened an old locked drawer. Inside was a folder I had kept for years. It contained documents connected to a business property I had purchased decades earlier. I had quietly invested in that property and allowed Ethan to use part of it for his business. He had always believed the property was controlled by a distant family trust. He never knew that. I was the person who had been protecting it. After the barbecue, I made one phone call. I called the 3 professionals who had been handling the property and business agreements for years. I told them it was time to meet Ethan personally. A few hours later, 3 men arrived at my son's house. Ethan opened the door, expecting perhaps a delivery. Instead, he saw the attorney who handled the property documents, the accountant who managed the financial records, and the business manager who had been overseeing the agreement. Ethan froze. He asked why they were there. The attorney handed him an envelope. Inside were copies of documents showing that the property supporting his business was still under my control. Ethan immediately called me. His voice was completely different. He apologized for the slap. He apologized for Amanda. He said he had lost control and begged me not to destroy his future. I told him I was not trying to destroy his future. I was finally protecting my own dignity. The next morning, Ethan came to my house alone. For the first time in years, he sat across from me without demanding anything. He admitted that he had allowed success to make him arrogant. He admitted that Amanda had convinced him I was interfering in their lives. Most importantly, he admitted that he had forgotten everything I had done for him. I told him that money could be replaced. Businesses could be rebuilt. But respect, once destroyed, could take years to restore. I did not cut my son out of my life that day. But I did change every agreement between us. From that moment forward, he would have to earn my trust instead of assuming he owned it. The biggest lesson I learned was that walking away is not always weakness. Sometimes walking away is the strongest decision a person can make. My son thought one slap would make me smaller. Instead, it forced me to finally stand up for myself. That night, 3 men arrived at his door and showed him something he had forgotten. The father he embarrassed was also the person who had quietly protected his future for years. Family should never be an excuse for disrespect. If someone truly values you, they will never make you beg for basic respect.